The Virtual Campground is a community of RVers. We gather around the campfire to share stories, information, and travel tips that help you on your next adventure. Your camp hosts, Deborah and Barry Benton, are full-time RVers in search of quaint bookstores, cozy coffee shops with great Wi-Fi, and epic photography opportunities, all to share with you. So pull up your chair and join us in the Virtual Campground.
What are we going to talk about today?
Texas, specifically the Big Bend National Park area.
That is correct. Today is going to be a really big show because we're talking about Big Bend.
Yeah, Big Bend, which is way down in the bottom of Texas. It's a beautiful national park. Doesn't get visited all that much, but it is gorgeous. You see the map there. It's way
See that little
down
green
the corner.
spot on the corner there, the elbow of Texas. Even Texans probably couldn't tell you exactly where it is.
A lot of Texans don't ever go to it.
No, exactly. And it is about 412 miles west of San Antonio, 292 miles south of El Paso. So we're talking really far away from
way down there.
Most of where people live. The closest big city is Alpine, Texas, to Big Bend. That's probably one of the best places to get your groceries when you're coming into that area, if you're not coming in with them. Because when you get to the Big Bend itself and are near Terlingua, there is some grocery shopping there, but you don't really want to do a lot of your grocery shopping there. You want to get it before you come.
Yeah.
And since you have a refrigerator you're coming with, highly recommend that that's what you do. Right?
Right, exactly. Yep.
Yes. So what Big Bend National Park is about 801,000 acres. It is not the largest national park because those are, of course, all in Alaska. It is only the 15th largest. Even in the continental, it's the 7th largest national park. But at 801,100 acres, you're not going to see it all in one trip.
It's a big place.
It's a very big place. And we saw a good portion of it, but clearly not all of it. It's got 3 distinct areas. There's the Ross Maxwell Scenic Drive area, the Chisos Mountain, and then the Rio Grande Valley area. That's the part we didn't get to on this trip, but you have visited before in other trips.
Yep.
But the 2 major areas and the places we would tell you if you only have a limited amount of time, where you should spend your time is the Chisos Mountains and the Ross Maxwell Scenic Drive areas. Don't you think?
I think so. Yep.
I think that's really the best places to go. The Big Bend National Park is named for
Big Bend.
the Big Bend in the river.
Oh, yes. The Big Bend in the Rio Grande.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. It does an actual 90% sharp turn. The river does. It is obviously what defines this national park is the Rio Grande River. About 118 miles of it separate Texas from Mexico. You can see Mexico from the border of the river, just as you're standing on the river.
Yep.
And it also protects a very large portion of the, let me think about this a minute. The little dogs are called Chihuahuas, right? The Chihuahuan Desert. I knew that I was going to have to stumble on that one. But we have a good portion of it in Texas, and we protect it with the Big Bend National Park. Of course, the other portion of it is in actual Mexico. The other fun fact about Big Bend is it has the only national park to have, do you know?
Well, it has, I don't know if this is what you're going for, but it's the only one that has an entire mountain range within the park.
Exactly.
Which I find fascinating because you would think Grand Teton National Park would fit that category, but I guess no.
No. Yeah, but no, everybody says this is the only one with the Chisos mountain range. Maybe it's because the Grand Tetons are just really considered 3 mountains, not a range.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe
And there is more to the range. They're just the 3 named, or really it's just one that's the Grand Teton.
I think I have a picture of, there's the road leading into the park. That's the Chisos Mountains there.
Mm-hmm. The other really fascinating part about Big Bend, and you've got a really awesome picture of the sky, is it's the darkest sky. It's designated darkest sky in the continental, the lower 48. So
yes, I've got a picture somewhere. I have no idea where it is.
There it is, Milky Way.
Oh, Milky Way. So yeah. Oh, by the way, you mentioned the other side that we didn't get to which was the
Rio
Rio
Grande.
Grande Valley area. This is a photo that David and I, when we did a hike on that side of things, that's Mexico right there. That's the river that runs through that area. We did a hike there, and it was really cool because, I mean, obviously you see Mexico. We saw someone walking along the beach on the other side, and shouted at them, said hello, and then also there are little trinkets that you can find on the trail where they'll make handmade trinkets, leave them there, and you just put money in, take a trinket. It's their way of making a little money on them.
Because it's actually illegal to buy anything in the park. You can from the Rio Grande Valley you could take a rowboat over and be actually in Mexico, and there they sell trinkets, and those are okay to buy.
So this is the Milky Way shot. You were talking about the dark sky.
Yep,
so,
very dark skies.
This is technically over in Terlingua, but the same concept.
Yes. And then the other interesting thing is there was a study recently. Big Bend was named the 7th best national park based on its diversity, biodiversity, its affordability, and the crowds. Because, as we've mentioned, it's really hard to get to, so it is not one of the most visited national parks. Though that said, their visitation has gone up like 50%. So they now get about 600,000 visitors a year. Nothing compared to the Smokies or the Grand Tetons or Yellowstone, but it is growing. And I think it's one of the reasons that one of those things that came out of the pandemic, more people said, where are we going to go? And Big Bend was in their backyard, so to speak, for the Texans. So they've discovered it. And we found that. We were there in mid-February to March. And when we first got there, it was pretty empty.
Yep.
But by the time we were leaving, spring breaks in Texas had started, so we were seeing more and more people.
Yeah, it's one of those parks that popular at spring break, popular all throughout the winter to some degree because it is the desert, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And so there could be a 20-degree or more swing between being up in the Chizos Mountains at the lodge or doing one of those hikes, and then you drive down into the desert, and it could be 20 degrees hotter. It could easily be 105 down there and much more cool and pleasant up in the mountains.
Right. So most people do visit the Big Bend area between, say, October and April because it does start to get very warm in that area. Obviously, it's Texas, plus it's a desert. So in the summer, it can be 105 to 110, which can be kind of dangerous for some people. Possible still to visit it in the summer, and it can still be a good place to visit as long as you have good air conditioning in your car on the scenic drive and you take plenty of water. And then, like you said, the Chizos mountain range, because you're going up in elevation, it could be cooler up there. They actually call it a sky lounge, I think, because it actually can be so much different than the desert plateau. So yeah, it is interesting. That said, it also gets really popular. When it gets popular at those times, those bookings up in the Chizos can really fill up. There are campgrounds within the park, but she also rents out retro vehicles, I would say. And I say that because she definitely had some Airstreams, but she also had a few unusual things.
Yeah, there's a bus they're restoring and a Willie Nelson bus. I don't know if they do the Willie Nelson bus. It looked more like decoration, but she had some interesting properties there and a little cabin or two, and she had a little petting zoo almost kind of thing.
Oh my gosh, she had so many animals. She had a whole poultry farm. She had turkey and a tom turkey that got kind of aggressive, and a lot of ducks and hens and different things, and then she had those donkeys. She also had one spot that was a boat that you could rent. This boat, and I can't remember now, that she had a really cute name for it.
Oh, yeah.
Based on her name.
Rendezvous.
Yeah, Rendezvous.
Yeah, her name was Rendezvous.
Yep.
So, yeah, just a boat planted out there in the desert, and you could rent and had a bedroom and I think it may have been an outhouse.
Well, a place to go. Yeah. So those are all, it's a good spot to stay, but it is a drive. It's a good 40 minutes from the entrance, plus a very long drive down the road to get to the retro, once you turn off the 118. So I highly recommend it as a spot, especially if you like privacy and you want quiet. But like I said, you have to then drive. And not only do you know, an hour more to get to the entrance, but then, of course, you're going to do a lot of driving once you get in.
Yeah, and it might be, you know, if we had done this differently, we might have stayed a couple of weeks out there. We would have stayed closer, done some intense Big Bend stuff,
Then,
get in and out of the park, and then go out there to relax and
that was probably
not
good.
drive as much.
Yeah, that's probably right. The other campground that's in the park, Rio Grande area, has a private campground within the park as well, the Rio Grande campground. So that one might have a little bit more room in it. We didn't get out there, like I said, to see it, so I don't know. So let's talk about what you should do once you get to Big Bend. We'll start with the Ross Maxwell Scenic Drive. This is about 30 miles drive. You can do a loop. The loop would require you to have an off-road rig, though we saw some cars on it. As long as it's dry, I think it's pretty safe, the Old Maverick Road. But you do have to check with the park ranger to make sure it's open. If you don't have a lot of time, I would probably skip that part. I didn't find that to be overwhelmingly like the coolest. So, but the Ross Maxwell Scenic Drive part of the road, which is paved, was much nicer, and that's about 30 miles. So you come in and you turn on Panther Junction and you start down the Ross Maxwell, and there are a lot of places you can stop along the way, and some of those include Mule Ears, was a neat little lookout.
I think I had a picture of that somewhere.
Okay, and that was cool. You see the ears. There is a hike you can take and get a little bit closer, or you can just get out on the overlook, and they had some area right there where you could just walk around, see the cactus and stuff. The next stop was the Sotal Vista, Sotal being a type of cactus.
Look at you.
Look at me. And so this is a great spot. This is a great spot because you can see all the way to the Santa Elena Canyon, which is the end of the road, the Maxwell Road. But it's also a great spot to go for sundown. We saw a few people sitting there waiting for the sundown when we went through there. We did not get there for sundown because we went on down to the Santa Elena Canyon.
Yeah.
Which, on the way down to the Santa Elena Canyon, you're also going to pass a historic town area called the Castilian Historic District. Unfortunately, in 2019, I think it was, they had a fire. So this very historic general store that's been around for the, since before it was a park, this store caught fire, and so it's just a shell right now. But that is a good place to stop, especially because by that point you're probably gonna be thirsty. And there is an actual concession store there.
Yeah. Not much to it, but there's a little something there.
You can get snacks and drinks and a few little souvenirs if you want. But it's a fun little place to stop. It's got a house that's still there from when they were running the store, the family. So it has a little bit of history and exhibit in there, and some signage that explains the area. It used to be farm land, which just blows my mind to think people were out there farming.
Right. It looked very lush. I mean, that whole valley down there looked incredible, some of those pictures.
Because of course the river was probably higher back then.
Yeah, they didn't have it as dammed as much, so they had plenty of water to farm down there.
Yeah. So I have to tell you the funniest thing, we were on our way to this historic district, and we're driving down the road, and you're going, 50 miles an hour down this road, and all of a sudden on the side of the road we saw a cow. I don't know where this cow came from. I think Mexico.
It looked Big Bend. Yeah.
He was just kind of standing on the side of the road. So it was very, very strange. Anyway, so once you leave the historic district, a little bit further down the road is the Santa Elena Overlook. This is just a little parking lot where you can get out, a little covered area with some signage that explains what you're looking at in the canyon, shows you where Mexico is, and is a way to look at the canyon. Definitely do a quick stop there, but don't stop only there. Keep going down the road and go to the Santa Elena Canyon. It is a very easy hike to the river from the parking lot. The parking lot gets a little bit crowded, but it's a really easy walk down to the river, the Rio Grande River. It actually, you'll read a lot about that you can walk across this creek to get to the other side, which is where the actual canyon is, right? And you're supposed to be able to walk across the creek and then go up. It's a little bit of a scramble, and then you're on a semi-paved trail that takes you, and then it has some stairs to take you up to the top so you can have a look. When we were there, it was not a dry creek. It was not dry at all.
It was like up to people's waists.
Yes. I mean, most of the time they say it's either dry or you'll get your feet wet. Well, they were up to their waists or hips at least. And we did not prepare for a wet trail. But it was very easy to walk up a little further, and there was a lot of rocks and things. So easy to cross over. And at that point, then it became a very steep climb up, a bit of a scramble, up steep area and some rocks, and down a little bit, and then we could catch the trail, which was definitely worth it. But you want to be in fairly good shape because you are going to do some scrambling and you are going to be on some steep things.
Yeah, but we did it. Didn't die.
No, and if I can do it, anybody. But we really wanted to we got there around sunset, which was awesome. And you got some really great shots of the canyon with the sun.
Yep. Yeah, it was beautiful. Loved it.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it. We didn't get to do the whole hike because it was getting a little dark. And so we had to turn around and head back. But it was lovely. Highly recommend it.
Yep. You also you might see some people, if the water's high enough, they might be doing some rafting on there. And again, you are right across the road from Mexico. Yeah.
Right across the river. Anyway.
Right across the river, yes. So those are all the areas that we would say on the scenic drive. Yep. Those are the major stops that we enjoyed. Now, that said, there are a lot of pull-offs that you could see. There was a couple of ranches. If you're a bird watcher, the Sam Neill Ranch is supposed to be a really great spot to see the birds. And we went up and down it a couple of times, different days, different times, because again, from a perspective of photographers know this, and those of us that just travel with photographers, the light changes those rocks and the mountains so much, and it's just so beautiful to look at.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we tried to do a moonrise at one point, but that didn't work out so well. But it was just beautiful to hang out there and we were near Sam Neill Ranch or whatever it's called for that. It's just a nice place to hang out.
Yeah, absolutely. So then the other thing that you have to do when you go to Big Bend, and this is actually what I would say would be the priority. So I would do this first for several reasons, and that is to go up to the Chisos Mountain area.
Definitely.
And we're going to talk to you about a couple of trails and what you can do up there, but you really have to do this early in the morning.
Oh my gosh, yes.
For a variety of reasons. One, it's cooler, and even in the winter, it gets warm, in Big Bend. Cooler up in the Chisos, obviously, but dry, and so you will need a lot of water. Make sure even in the winter, you take a lot of water.
Yep.
But what's the other reason why you really have to get there early?
Well, we left what we thought was really early
to
go do the
Lost
Mine Trail hike, and got there, and this very small parking lot was packed. It was full. So there's a little bit of a extra lot, so to speak, a quarter of a mile up the road. That was packed. So we said to heck with it.
Well, and let's just also note, yes, it's a quarter of a mile or so up the road, but it is a steep climb.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're going
to get
uphill, up. You're walking uphill to the road, and then once you get to the trail, the first half a mile is a pretty steep.
It's a very steep.
Yeah.
Like I had to stop a couple times. Steep trail, this Lost Mines Trail, which is. Do you know how long the Lost Mines Trail is?
It's in the outro. It's they said like 2.5 hours, 900-foot elevation gain. 5.5 miles comes to mind.
Okay. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
one of
if
the more
you do the whole
popular,
thing.
obviously.
But the cool thing about Lost Mine is you can go there, and 1 mile in, there's sort of this saddle area that you can get to and just hang out there, and it's just beautiful.
That's what I did.
So you don't have to do the whole trail. I went the whole thing this time, and it's gorgeous up at top, and you'll see some photos there. Are we going to that now?
Yeah,
Are
let's
we
go
doing
to Lost
the
Mine.
windows? Okay. So yeah, so it's gorgeous going further on up, but honestly, that saddle area about 1 mile in is really beautiful. So that's a view from near the top. That may be near the saddle actually, and then that's at the top. And
I'll have to post some pictures I took from where I was, because we were there really early. Really, it was sunrise.
Yep.
So it was fascinating for me. I hung out up there. There's actually a bench or two over there. There's also a really cool rocky area. You can just sit on the rocks. Yep. and watch the sun come up. So I got some pretty pictures, I thought, and didn't have to go all the way to the top.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. So highly recommend it.
Yep, it's really nice. But the parking lot is really small. So you really, like when we say early, you have to be there when it's dark.
Yeah, you'll notice in the outro, there's a little time lapse of our drive-in the first day, and there's a little bit of light in the sky. You can tell it's early morning, and that's when we were going to Lost Mine, and we just drove right past the parking lot. The next time you see the time lapse in the Jeep, it's really dark. I mean, the sun is 30, 45 minutes.
To do the whole window trail, which in hindsight
was an excellent idea.
I'm glad I did it. I am absolutely glad I did it. I wish we had been there earlier to get started.
Earlier in the day.
Yeah. Because it was quite, by the time we were coming back, and the elevation there was 1,000 feet. I think it was 1,000 feet elevation coming back up. It was pretty warm. That said, you can also kind of cheat it. So the worst part, the steepest part, is the beginning, where you're going from the lodge area down to basically the trail. There is a campground down there that you could park at and start there. Then you miss that whole going literally straight up. It's also interesting.
Not literally straight up.
I felt like it. You're going back and forth. It's like when you're skiing and you have to go back and forth because you won't, lose control. It was also interesting. They had park rangers right at the top of the trail, and they were checking us. How much water do you have?
Passport control.
They were like, how much water do you have? That is not enough. Go get some more water.
Yeah, we had to go back. We had to go to the concessionaire and the little store there and buy more water.
And the people, you could tell who had come on from the campground, because they had one bottle of 16 ounces of water. That's it. And that I drank every bit of the water that we had.
Oh yeah, we could have used more.
Yeah, we could have. But it is absolutely worth the walk. It is. Once you get off the steep part, it's not a bad hike until you get really close to the windows, and at that point it becomes a scramble. And a scramble, I have to sit down and put my feet down and get onto rocks and stuff like that. And then there's a little bit of stairs even at the end. But the amazing windows.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's really worth it. It's a little difficult to get to, but it's really worth it. It's a lot of fun. It's a different kind of hike and a different kind of end. I mean, that you look maybe 10, 15 feet off behind it, right there behind us. It's a solid drop off to the desert floor.
And what we're standing on, it was almost like it was fake. It was polished.
Yeah, very polished.
Very
rock.
polished. It had some what they call bathtubs in some of the hikes. Where it's been worn out by the water, and people were sitting, and some people were getting extremely close to that edge. But it was very slick and shiny, so also slippery. So you would want to be really careful, especially if it was wet, which wasn't when we were there.
No, thank God.
Yeah. But it's a great hike, like I said, except for that portion that it is 1,000 feet elevation gain. Not my normal gain on hikes. So that's my big hike for the whole year, and you'll hear me say it proudly that I did it. So those are two areas that those two hikes are great. But even if you just do the window view, it's got some neat interpretive stuff near it, and you'll be able to see the trail and the amazing just prettiness of the Chisos Mountains. They're just they're different than other mountains, and I'm sure it has something to do with the desert, but they are really pretty amazing to look at, and especially if you're there during sunrise or sunset, because of just the change. Just even going up Lost Mine And you had told me this, and so I was being very mindful of turning around and really looking behind me, because there was, a set of cliffs and rocks on the other side too, and just having that full 360 view and remembering to look behind me. So the other reason it does get crowded, like we said, that one parking lot, but the whole parking lot, it's a very small parking lot by the lodge. We actually, as we left, noticed they were metering people coming up the road.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that main road that goes up into the Chizo's Mountain Lodge, they were already holding people, and it was like 10:30 when we were coming out of there.
Probably.
Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't super late in the day, and there were already a big line of cars, and they were just holding them up. And as a car left, they were letting one car in. It was crazy.
Yeah. So, and you saw campers, and yeah, it was a long line too. It was probably a mile long of cars waiting to get up there. And that is, now again, when we first got there, we did not have that experience, but by March, we definitely had that experience. So if you're there during a very busy time of year, you just need to keep that in mind. So here was one of my biggest surprises at Big Bend, and that I found fascinating, which is unusual for me, I have to tell you that. It's the fossil exhibit that they had.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
They had, you're driving around, and we pulled off the road because it said this, what do they call it? The Fossil Discovery Exhibit. Totally made for kids. So if you have kids, absolutely great place to take them, because there was a playground and everything. But this little building, they were explaining and had examples of dinosaur bones, because apparently Big Bend is a font of dinosaur bones. Yeah. And dinosaurs I've never heard of, honestly. And it was fascinating because they also had they did such a great job of explaining to you each of the ages, and how, it started out where Big Bend was completely covered by water. And then they show how some of the water went away, and then more. And then you could start to see how Texas got formed. And then this is probably the first time in my many, many years of truly understanding all these ages. The way they did it was just so well done that it made me better understand dinosaurs and all those ages.
Yeah. If you believe dinosaurs.
If you believe dinosaurs, which if you don't, go see this, because I think you might get a little convinced. They had some enormous heads and thighs, and it was just crazy. But it was truly something I wasn't expecting, and that
yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. And I've read since then that paleontologists love the Big Bend, but they're also confounded by it, because apparently they find these dinosaur bones and they find these pieces in so many places that they shouldn't be in Big Bend. They say it's like it's almost as if it sounds to me like maybe it happened here, and then because of the way the desert moves or the way things happen, they just moved around or something.
Interesting.
It was really interesting. Where we didn't make it to like Rio Grande. Now you have some pictures from the Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah.
Rio Grande Valley area, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And but we didn't make it. Now, if we went back, I would want to go there. Specifically, I'd want to go to the Ernest Tinaha,
Tinaha, something like that.
That's it, Tinaha.
Yeah.
I always get my emphasis on the wrong syllable. But because there's some slot canyons there that look really cool. There's you can actually go. There's some swimming holes that people have used in historical times, and I think you can still get in there. It's also an area that has a hot springs that people can get in, and it's also the spot where if you want to go across the river to Mexico, you can do that as well.
Yep.
Yep. Do you have those pictures?
That's the only one I've got. And the other one I showed earlier, that when David and I did our hike, but this is going off into that direction. It's just a different look and feel to that part of the park.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And the other spot that we didn't make it to, and another hike I would have liked to have made, it's about a 2.2 mile hike to the Balanced Rock, which is really cool looking rock formations out in the middle of the desert. But at a certain point, I got really tired and it was hot. It was getting hot, and that was just not going to be on my list to be that hot. One of the drives we did a lot of drives. Some of the roads were pretty decent, some of them not so decent. One that we did that for me was a bust was the Dagger Flats Road.
Yeah. So you'll read about Dagger Flats and how when the yucca are blooming,
which was around the time we were there,
it looks like just a big field of candles. And I don't know if we caught it the wrong day, time, or whatever, but it was just a bumpy dirt road.
Very bad road.
Yeah, a bumpy dirt road, and the yucca didn't look amazing. So,
but we saw yucca that were beautiful. I mean, they were in full bloom with the full white head. You have a picture of a close up.
I did, yeah, I showed that earlier, but I'll try to find
it. But gorgeous when they're fully flowered, and it was really neat because in this we actually saw at our campground. I thought those were prettier than the ones we saw at Dagger Flats because we saw them when they had the bulb before it actually started opening, and then could watch it as it opened and started to flower all the white of it. So, and then as it started to get brown again. So it was kind of fun to watch that while we were in the campground, just kind of go from beginning to the end. Okay, so that is our top picks for in the Big Bend.
Yep.
Outside of Big Bend, there's another scenic drive called River Road. It goes all the way up to a city that's name has just escaped my head. But you go up through you'll actually go up through the Big Bend State Park. So you have this Big Bend National Park. You also have, very conveniently located near to the national park, a state park. And it's the largest state park in Texas.
Big Bend Ranch State Park.
Yep. And another spot to do some great hikes, some horseback riding. We actually went out to it and got in a canoe.
Yep. Big Bend Ranch State Park is not as developed as Big Bend National Park, so it's a great place to go if you want to get a little bit more into nature and do some hikes that are not as improved as the hikes in Big Bend.
Yep.
But yeah, we did a cool canoe trip.
We wanted to do rafting, but the water was not high enough. So we did a canoe trip, and the canoe trip, because again, the water wasn't high enough in the national park, we started in the state park and went down a couple miles. This was really fun. It was actually kind of funny. A couple of spots where we were hitting bottom.
Yeah.
And one place he had us pull out and walk around a little bit, and he's like, "Okay, you're in Mexico."
Yep.
We were in a little
right
outlet.
here, I believe. Yep. We were standing in Mexico.
We were standing in Mexico.
The United States behind us.
Yeah. So that was kind of fun. The canoe ride was really fun, really pretty. Saw some neat birds and some turtles. Lots of turtles. Lots of turtles sunning themselves. So that was fun, and we had a small little rapids excitement, which was also fun. We sadly some of the people in the canoe had tipped over. We did not tip over. We got stuck once, but we didn't tip over. So
I lost my hat, but the guide went and got it for me.
Thank goodness, that hat. So, yes, if you were with us in what island is that? Mackinac Island?
Mackinac Island.
You heard about that hat. Anyway, so the other obvious place to visit when you're in the Big Bend area is Terlingua.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Terlingua is a really cool ghost town. You'll see references to Terlingua Ghost Town, and then there's just the town of Terlingua.
The ghost town is a teeny tiny part of it.
Yeah, and it's a really cool place. Lots of people that have been there forever, lots of locals, and just a really cool place to hang out. It's getting more and more developed.
Oh my gosh.
In the 3 or 4 years since I was there last, there's been a lot more construction, little apartments going up, little houses.
You can tell they're
for
going to be little Airbnbs, yeah. Because they're like little one-room cabin looking things. Some things that could be condos and stuff, but a lot of really small spots. The ghost town itself was actually a ghost town for a while, and then back in the probably 50s, 60s, people started moving in, and it's had a very artsy feel to it. Obviously, they kind of felt like they were away from society, I'm sure a little bit wild. That is also when the famous Terlingua chili cook-off started.
Oh, that's right.
When they came back and started populating it. We were shown where that chili cook-off is. They said there's actually kind of two cook-offs now. There's one family-friendly, and then there's one that's the original that is not family-friendly. Do not take children to it.
Apparently the one that's family-friendly is closer into town. This one was a little bit on the outskirts of town. This cross is from the Terlingua Cemetery, which is a really cool, famous cemetery that's right there in town. Really cool place. And then, of course, you have to go have dinner and listen to some music at Starlight Theater. That's one of the cool places to go. There were several nice restaurants in town, but
lots of live music too.
This is the one that you hear most about. And here's a little clip of some live music. When David and I did a workshop down there, a photography workshop, we had the chance to listen to some music.
Take you to the country, babe. I might take you to town. If I ever tell you I ain't letting
So a cool place with lots of atmosphere. Highly recommend hanging out in Terlingua for a while.
And the Starlight Theater, you gonna have a wait for dinner probably, but that's fine. There's also outside the patio. Highly recommend just going out and sitting on the patio, watching the sunset.
And there's two things. There's the patio bar, which you could get something to eat at the patio bar and hang out there. We did that one night. And then there's a little, like a touristy kind of shop to go get t-shirts and stuff. It's been there forever. The gentleman, the little high school kid that was running the register, was telling us that the flag above the doorway was from the Alamo.
Yes.
And there are lots of history in there, so recommend taking a browse through
just
that.
To go through. And the good thing is, the hosts from the Starlight Theater will come find you in the store when your table's ready. So they came and found us, and we went in there. They also, when we were there at Starlight in February, there was not live music that night that we were there. They told us, but you never know, somebody might just get up on stage and start playing. They didn't, sadly, but apparently that is common and can happen. So if you're a good guitar player, feel free to get up on the stage if there's nobody up there.
There's a little artist's gift shop that's a few feet away from the Starlight Theater, and has some really neat local artists and some from Mexico. Highly recommend taking a browse through there. We picked up a couple of things from that shop.
Yeah, it's really pretty things. And then on just the other side of that of that art shop is a coffee shop that also you can get breakfast, and I don't think you can get dinner, but definitely lunch. And it's called...
If you search for coffee shops in Terlingua, it'll pop up.
Pocamas.
Or something?
Pocamas. A little more. E Pocamas. That's the coffee shop area. But really, there's a barbecue place there that is supposed to be really good and has live music. We went to another restaurant, had a great patio, great, again, live music. So really can't go wrong. You don't have a lot of choices, so really, if you want to eat out. But
it's a lot of fun.
Definitely worth going and at least having a beer and hanging out. And why would they want to go through Marfa?
Well, it's a cool sort of artsy town. But the reason I wanted to go that direction out was I wanted to go by hold on, I've got it here, the Prada store. So they have an artist, it's an artist installation, and he actually got product from Prada. So there's actual real product in here.
Like $40,000 worth of product.
There's no working door. And he actually built it as sort of a statement on retail. So he wanted to build
commercialism
so he wanted to build it in a way that it would just fall into the desert and it would just fall apart. Well, it got so popular and it actually got vandalized, and they had to do some things because it was getting so popular to protect it. So now it's got security cameras all over it, and it's built now much more stable. So it is there forever. Yes. But it's a cool place to just go drive by and take a snapshot. We saw some, I'm sure there were Instagrammers or TikTokers or whatever doing little routines outside of it.
Yeah. They all did the exact same thing, so we knew it was something trending on TikTok. Cool. I think what it was I think Beyonce's been there, and I think it's what she had done or something. Anyway.
The other reason to go to Marfa is because of the famous Marfa lights.
Yes.
Now, we stayed at the Marfa Lights viewing. In the outro, there's a picture of our snow-covered rig, the snow-covered Marfa Lights observation area.
It's an observation area rest stop, and you can spend the night there. We stayed overnight, assuming that because the Marfa Lights might not happen till 2 a.m. So we thought, okay, this will be great. We can kind of check in and out with the lights while we're parked here. Well, we weren't expecting it to snow. So, like I said, it had been warm and hot the whole time we've been there. The day we left, thank goodness we left, honestly, because our campground got like 6 inches of snow. We probably wouldn't have been able to get out of there because of the road. And then we got snow at the overlook. Actually had a frozen slide for a bit.
Yeah, because of the way the snow and ice was blowing in, it froze up one of our slides, and Deb had to work with the hair dryer on the inside, and I was outside chipping ice off of the rails, and so we finally got the slide in. But really neat little town. I wish we could have explored more of Marfa, but I did go into town and found a very authentic Mexican restaurant. Did not speak any English, and grabbed us some breakfast tacos, which were so-so, but it was a fun experience. And then I went to the local coffee shop, and it was just in an old RV trailer that had been renovated. It looked really cool. So Marfa looks like a really cool town to explore. I hope we can make it back there.
One day. So, so again, going back to Big Bend, or just why would you want to go all the way down to the bottom of the state of Texas? If you're a bird watcher, that's why you have pictures of birds.
That's right.
If you're a bird watcher, it is very famous for being a great place to go for bird watchers, in particular for a bird that I wrote down because I didn't want to forget it. Colima warbler, who is a New World warbler found primarily in the Sierra Madre of Mexico. Apparently it comes to Big Bend and the Chisos Mountains, so people go there to try to see it.
Do I have a picture of a warbler?
I don't think so. I don't think any of those are warblers.
Bummer.
I know. But these little bluebirds, they were following us all around. We found out they're called mountain jays, and they were following us quite a bit. Apparently they've gotten pretty smart about knowing if there's hikers or might be food. So, but they were fun to watch, and they were trilling quite a bit, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
So other things just to know about Big Bend. One, if you use the Just Ahead app,
a great app.
Which we've mentioned before, but it is free for Big Bend. They give Big Bend away, so you don't have to pay for that one.
At least at the time of this recording.
Yes. Do also know the cell service around Big Bend is very poor.
And one note about Just Ahead. Download it to your phone when you're in cell service. Go ahead and get the Big Bend section loaded up, and then have it running before you lose cell service, just in case.
But it works off of GPS, so it doesn't really need the cell service.
As long as you have it up and running, it'll work.
Yep. But the cell service in the park is pretty non-existent, except for some of the high spots. Our Starlink worked really well when we were
Starlink was amazing out there.
Yeah, in our campground. And also know that if you're going to go to the Chisos Mountain Lodge area and you want to actually stay in the lodge, they are anticipating in 2024 some closures and impacting some of the visitors because the lodge itself, which was built forever ago, is starting to erode, and the only way they can fix it really is to replace it. So just know that in 2024 there will be some disruption to visitor services. And also just keep in mind, no matter what time of year you go, take twice as much as water as you think you're going to need, because it's so dry.
Yep.
And it does get warm there, even in February, even 3 weeks before it snows. It's kind of crazy. It is a very different national park. It's also a park that, you know how you go places and you'll think, wow, you can kind of see how life was back in the day.
Yeah.
This is a park that
Very
really feels like, oh my gosh, like First People. I could imagine First People here. I kept waiting for John Wayne to come across the desert, because it looks like all the Western movies you've ever seen. So it's truly a different experience. I don't usually like deserts, but I really enjoyed this park. I thought it was really amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't take long to get off of the paved road and go off to a trail or something, and you just feel like
you're the only person in the world.
You could see a wagon coming over the next hill or something. It's very unimproved in a lot of places.
Yep. So let us know in comments your thoughts about Big Bend. We'd love to hear if you have any tips or tricks for folks. And so that's Big Bend.
Yeah. Anything else?
I think that's all I got.
Okay. Thanks for being here. Can't wait to see you in person sometime. But until then, we'll see you in the virtual campground.
See you around the campfire and enjoy the outro.